We've seen a lot of OT attacks with ransomware and supply chain attacks. Tell us a bit about what you and your team are seeing as you look out across the OT threat landscape. What's happening there?
Well, it's definitely not getting any better, right? In terms of manufacturers, still they are the most attacked sector in the world.
Sure.
It's even more than financial and the retail sectors. And although I think that's because of the ransomware and the cyber criminals, they target the manufacturers. Although they don't necessarily target the OT of the manufacturers, but in our data, when IT compromise, the OT always falls. And on the other hand, the geopolitical tension is also not getting any better, right? And we saw the critical infrastructure being targeted by the nation-sponsored hackers. And they could use different techniques there. For example, the Viper malware used in the Ukraine-Russia war, they not encrypt the data. They wipe out the whole system in order to make the recovery more difficult. And speaking to Volt Typhoon, where the China hackers steal the data from the US critical infrastructure, they use the native Windows application to do the data movement in order to avoid the inspection of EDR solutions. In short, we just need paying more attention to OT cybersecurity.
Sure, and attackers have clearly discovered that the OT part of the network is perhaps a bit more vulnerable and less protected than the IT side. There's also a people place here as well, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes OT and IT are managed by different teams,
yes.
Different teams in different divisions. They rarely, if ever, talk. Are you bumping up against that as you talk with more and more customers about this?
Yeah, building an OT team, OT security team is hard. Generally speaking, nowadays it's hard to recruit a very good cybersecurity guy. And it's even harder to find someone who understands OT security. And it's basically impossible to find someone who understands your own operations in OT, right? So I think a practical way which I witnessed from many large enterprises in the world, they cropped the OT security team, a small team, from the IT InfoSec team, so that these guys can talk to the plant manager and asset owner in order to understand the limitations and environment of the OT. And then they can extend their cybersecurity guideline from IT and cloud to the OT. And with this conversation and dialogue with the asset owner and the plant manager, it's really critical.
Okay.
Because later on, you need to deploy those security measures and solutions, and you need their support.
Of course.
Yeah, so that's what people do.
Hiring is an ongoing challenge for every enterprise, every organization, especially for security positions. Are companies not looking in the right places for candidates for security jobs? Do employers need a different approach to security management? What's your take on this?
I think it's bi-directional. You want to find the security guy who understands the OT system and OT operations. But I see more and more people who want to learn about OT and IoT and then those AI stuff to be applied into the smart city. So I see that things will be resolved slowly. But again, we need the support from top management to pay more attention to the OT security, to the IoT, and even to the network connectivities like 5G in the enterprises, not just the laptop, not just the cloud.
So if I'm understanding right, your organizations shouldn't necessarily combine their OT and IT technical management, but from an organizational or personnel perspective, those teams need to be better integrated, it sounds like. Is that an accurate paraphrase?
Well, it's still hard, especially for not so large enterprises. And I think the key is, so number one, do you have the support from top management? Mm-hmm. Because who should shoulder responsibility
Sure.
for OT security, right? So without the support from top management, it's like a mission impossible. And secondly, do you know where are the crown jewels? I mean, what kind of system and network, when they being brought down by hacker, the whole operation will be interrupted. And that we need to pay more attention to. And third thing is, do you have people who understand the OT and keep monitoring the cybersecurity there? Because if you just look at the log from the firewall, from the antivirus, it's just not so helpful when the nation-sponsored hacker target you, or even for ransomware, right? I mean, you want to identify this ransomware is doing something abnormal, not typical OT behavior. Why? Because at the first place, if the IT, XDR, or EDR solutions are able to detect the ransomware, we won't have that problem because OT is not internet facing. So, which means we need to use different way. We need to learn the normal of OT in order to identify the ransomware abnormal there. And then you need someone and the solutions to be specialized design for the OT.
Great stuff, Terence. This is a much deeper cut on the IT-OT integration issue. It is fraught with a lot of challenges for sure. Thank you so much for joining us on the Dark Reading News Desk. Really great talking to you as always.
It's my pleasure.